Today we're going to talk about those words heavy and light. Here's a picture to give you an idea of heavy and light. One side has lots of rocks and those are really heavy. One side has one rock and it's heavy, but it's not as heavy as all of those other rocks. So you can see this seesaw of these rocks is slightly tilted toward the side that's heavier. Let's talk about the word hefting. When we heft, we hold things in our hands, maybe in just our hands like this, or maybe in our hands like this. We feel that resistance or that pull to tell us how heavy something is. It's a great way to compare two items. I can hold something on this side and something on this side, and I can feel, observe, and think about which side feels heavier and which feels lighter. You could do it with your eyes closed too and really feel which side is heavier and which side is lighter. Don't always be tricked by what you see. Hefting's a bit more about what you feel. Let's talk about heavy and light, and let's think about what we would feel if we were hefting some items today. Today we're going to use our body like a seesaw too. I want you to stand up nice and straight, mathematicians. Are you standing? Stand up nice and straight. I want you to hold your hands out either side of your body just like this person. Today we're going to use our body like a seesaw to tilt and move and show which side is heaviest and which is lightest. We're going to pretend we're hefting. To heft, we would have objects in each hand, and we're going to think about which side would be heaviest and which would be lightest. And then our body will move to show this, like a seesaw. Let's have a look at the first set of objects and decide which is heaviest and which is lightest, and we're going to decide what our body would do, our human seesaw. I see a leaf and I see a drink bottle. What do we know about these items and how can we compare their weight? Which would be heaviest and which would be lightest? I know a leaf flutters and floats when it falls from the trees. And I know a drink bottle is usually full of water. I think today the drink bottle is definitely heavier than the leaf. So if I'm holding my hands out and pretending to heft these objects, my body would move like this. The drink bottle is making me pull down on one side, and the side that the leaf's on would rise up here. My seesaw would look like this. The drink bottle is heavier. Back to the middle. We're balancing the scales again to have a look at our next objects. Let's see what they are. There's a mug or a cup and a piece of Duplo or a Lego brick. Which do you think is heaviest out of these items and which do you think's lightest? If I'm holding the mug in this hand and the Lego brick in this hand, what would my seesaw do? Would it tilt towards the Lego brick? Or would it tilt towards the mug? Which item is heavier? Which item is going to pull the seesaw down? I think it's the mug. A mug's quite heavy, or it's heavier than a Lego brick, I know that. So my seesaw would go this way. The Lego brick would be up here, and the mug would be pulling down here. This is what my human seesaw looks like when I'm holding a mug and a Lego brick. Let's go back to the middle and take a look at the next items. This time I see a leaf and a feather. What do you know about these objects? They're both fairly light. If I were thinking of light objects in the world, a leaf and a feather could be two items I would say. These are both light. I don't know what my seesaw would do. What do you think you would do? I think they would be equal or close to equal, around the same. I'm going to leave my seesaw like this. This is equivalent or equal. It's staying the same. It's not tilting much at all because both of these items are light and I think they're about the same weight. I think they weigh the same. So a seesaw would probably stay equivalent, just like this. Let's take a look at the next objects. I think today I'm going to say I've got the drink bottle on this side and the shoe on this side. This drink bottle is full of water. So I'm going to say if I were holding these two items, I would go like this. The drink bottle full of water is still going to be heavier than the shoe. I know that a full drink bottle is quite heavy, heavier than a shoe. So my scales or my seesaw would do this. Back to the middle. Let's take a look at some more items together. Now I have a pool flamingo and a brick. The pool flamingo is very big. The brick's not as big as the pool flamingo. I'm going to pretend I have the pool flamingo on this side and the brick on this side. Does it matter that the pool flamingo is much bigger than the brick? Does that mean that the flamingo is going to be heavier? No. Little mathematicians, just because something's bigger, it doesn't mean it's heavier. A pool flamingo is quite light. You could easily carry it above your head. A brick's quite heavy. You could still carry it. I wouldn't want you to carry it above your head, but it's heavier than a pool flamingo. A pool flamingo floats on top of the water. If I throw a brick into water, it's going to go straight to the bottom because it's very heavy. So if I were holding a pool flamingo and a brick, I'm still going to tilt towards the brick, even though that pool flamingo is really large. A brick is much heavier than a pool flamingo. Back to the middle. This time there is a drink bottle and a shoe. Which one do you think is heavier and which one do you think is lighter? It's hard because we may need to know more about this. Is the drink bottle full or empty? Is the shoe for an adult or a child? I think today I'm going to say I've got the drink bottle on this side and the shoe on this side. This drink bottle is full of water. So I'm going to say if I were holding these two items, I would go like this. The drink bottle full of water is still going to be heavier than the shoe. I know that a full drink bottle is quite heavy, heavier than a shoe. So my scales or my seesaw would do this. Back to the middle. Let's take a look at some more items together. Now I have a pool flamingo and a brick. The pool flamingo is very big. The brick's not as big as the pool flamingo. I'm going to pretend I have the pool flamingo on this side and the brick on this side. Does it matter that the pool flamingo is much bigger than the brick? Does that mean that the flamingo is going to be heavier? No. Little mathematicians, just because something's bigger, it doesn't mean it's heavier. A pool flamingo is quite light. You could easily carry it above your head. A brick's quite heavy. You could still carry it. I wouldn't want you to carry it above your head, but it's heavier than a pool flamingo. A pool flamingo floats on top of the water. If I throw a brick into water, it's going to go straight to the bottom because it's very heavy. So if I were holding a pool flamingo and a brick, just because that flamingo is bigger, it doesn't mean it's heaviest. I know out of these two items, the brick's the heaviest. So my seesaw is going to tilt towards the brick. Back to the center, let's balance our seesaw. Let's take a look at the next items together. I can see a feather and I can see a bunch of grapes. Which would be heaviest out of these items? I have the grapes in this hand and I have the feather in this hand. I know that feathers are light and they float in the breeze. I know that grapes are heavier than a feather. They pull down a little bit on our hands as we lift them out of the packet. A bunch of grapes is going to be heavier than a feather. So my scales will probably do this. The grapes are heavy and the feather's light. This is what my seesaw would look like. Let's take a look at the next items. I can see a tennis ball and an orange. Both of these are a sphere, a type of three-dimensional object. But which is heavier and why? If I have the orange in this hand and the tennis ball in this hand, I think that an orange is heavier. My reason for this is because a tennis ball bounces. It's hollow. It doesn't have anything in the center of it. An orange is full of the fruit and the juice that makes an orange so delicious to eat. So if I'm holding an orange in a tennis ball, I'm going to tilt towards the orange because an orange is heavier than a tennis ball. Little mathematicians, you might like to have a go at hefting with some items today to compare which is heaviest and lightest. Somebody might give you some items and you have to have a careful feel about which one is heavier and which one is lighter. You could even sort some objects into heavy and light. Make two groups. You're sorting attributes based on their weight, heavy and light. What's the word that we used? Heft or hefting. We're hefting today. We're holding objects in our hands to feel which is heaviest and which is lightest. We're comparing objects based on their weight.